Federation know that the water supply is stabilized. Actually, we're rebuilding our reserves. You did great. I am a little concerned, however.
About what?
I don't like your reports. What was in the reports, that is. In fact, they scared the heck out of me. It's those mutants. I've done some calculations and... well, I've come to an unpleasant conclusion.
What's that?
The mutant population is far greater than could be expected by natural growth or mutations. This leads me to believe that I don't really understand it, but it looks like someone's generating new mutants, and at a startling rate.
Must be a lab somewhere then.
Exactly. And as you've probably guessed, none of these mutations could have occurred naturally, even with the radiation from the war.
What do you want me to do about it?
As long as someone is creating hostile mutants at this rate, the vault's safety is at stake. Find and destroy this lab as soon as you can.
Once more into the breach, my friend.
You have no idea how sorry I am to send you back out.
Oh, mercy. Holy flame.
Oh, mercy. Holy flame.
Why do you disturb an elder of the cathedral?
I'm interested in your church, and I want some information. Do you have any pamphlets?
Continue to mock me, and I will have you thrown out.
But I'm not mocking you, honest.
Then why are you here? What would bring you to the children of the cathedral?
I am a seeker of knowledge. I would like to learn more.
Are you a child?
Am I one of the children of the cathedral? No.
Are you interested in converting to our faith? We can offer you what no one else can.
And what's that?
A lifetime of contentment. Fulfillment in the knowledge you're working to rebuild the planet and make it a better place for those who follow.
Sounds very interesting. Could you tell me more? I seek fulfillment.
You are in the right place for spiritual fulfillment. The children of the cathedral seek a peaceful resolution of our world's problems and could use your help.
What are the children's plans for mutants?
Those that can be brought into the fold shall be. Those that resist will suffer.
Sounds like a tough job.
With perseverance, the children can accomplish anything. We will not fail. Blessings of the Holy Flame to you, my child.
Who's the Holy Flame?
There is no one greater than the Holy Flame, and we are his servants.
Okay. Bye.
Greetings! Hey! We're very glad you could join us. We hope you have found our humble abode to your satisfaction.
Thanks. Can you tell me more about what you worship here?
We don't worship so much as follow a set of principles. We want to bring peace back to this wasteland. The world tends toward destruction, so we try to make a difference.
How?
We try to remind people why the Great War happened in the first place, and help ensure it won't ever happen again.
Have you been successful at all?
We never give up hope. We never will, even though most live by the gun these days. And we are concerned with the children of the cathedral.
What about them?
They claim to want peace like us, but anyone who disagrees with them just disappears. Their dark god is not what he seems. Believe me.
How do you know?
Call it instinct. We've seen Morpheus and the Nightkin, and they don't look like peacemakers to us. Their hospitals and message of peace make them attractive, but we know there's evil there.
Do you have any clues?
A number of our spies have seen Nightkin coming in and out of the back room of the Children's Temple. Something important is back there.
Can I ask you a few more questions?
Ask, and I'll answer if I can.
Tell me a little history behind the followers.
What would you like to know?
Where did the followers start?
Far to the south, near the Great Glow. The times were hard, but we managed to survive. We realized then the Great War must never happen again.
So you started the Followers of the Apocalypse?
After my parents were killed by marauders. It was time the killing stopped. It's our goal to make this land the way it used to be, before the war.
Can I ask you a few more questions? What else do you know about the children of the cathedral?
You've probably seen their hospitals around. They preach peace, but there is something very wrong with them. We need to find out what.
Do you know who their leader is?
Morpheus is the leader of the children of the cathedral. He is evil, and that fact must be exposed.
Do you have any suspicions about
A
them?
number of our spies have seen Nightkin coming in and out of the back room of the children's temple. Something important is back there.
Can you help me destroy them?
No, but I know someone who will. Go to the cathedral and find a woman named Laura. Say the phrase Red Rider. We'll create a diversion if we can.
Thanks, I can use all the help I can get.
Our destiny lies before us. Let us hope we are worthy.
Tomitia, let's get it on.
Well, hello again. Are you just walking, or may I help?
Are you Laura?
I most certainly am. Did you want something?
Nicole sent me to talk to you.
Nicole? I'm so sorry. I don't believe I know anyone by that name.
Well, she told me to tell you, Red Rider.
I'm sorry. I just don't know. Follow me to a place where we can talk. So, what can I do for you now?
I need to ask you a few more questions.
Okay, but we have to hurry.
Is there a secret entrance into the inner sanctum of the church?
It's not the inner sanctum you want to enter.
Then what?
I've followed Morpheus down a back secret staircase. The guy activates a secret door at the bottom.
Then what?
He uses this strange key to open it and disappears. I've never tried to follow him.
Do you know where this key is?
Well, I'd say he keeps it on him.
Can I ask you a few more questions?
Make it quick.
What have you learned about the Master?
Not much. The children worship him, and sometimes a huge vision of him appears in the main nave of the church.
So he's real?
Yes and no. I snuck up to the front one day, and I found a strange mechanical device with a lens under the altar.
Probably a hollow projector of some kind.
So I'm pretty sure this master is flesh and blood. And I also think I know where he is.
Where?
Morpheus will go through a secret staircase leading below the church, and he enters a secret door with some kind of a key. I think the master's down there.
When Anonymous in Los Angeles were outside Big Blue.
Right.
And in terror, nobody was allowed to walk on the pavements. They've got subterranean tunnels. This Big Blue has 3 layers under it.
What are the children's plans?
The children are setting up hospitals all over the place. I think they're trying to get people to trust them.
Is it working?
Oh, it sure looks that way. I mean, people are flocking to their church. Can't they see it's a fake?
How can I stop them?
Find the master and stop him.
I will.
Only Morpheus has the key to this door. I must leave now to let Nicole know what is going on here.
Let's find out a little more about these cloaked villainous creeps.
Hey, haven't I heard about you? You've killed all sorts of shit, haven't you? What brings you here?
I heard about some strange stuff happening here. What's going on?
I ain't saying nothing to you, pal. Go to hell. What brings you here?
Peace, unity, that sort of stuff.
You know, there are a lot of other people around here who think like that. Don't bother them.
Where's the master?
That's Morpheus, our leader. He's up in the tower, I think.
Who else is important in this joint?
I ain't saying nothing to you, pal. Go to hell.
Hello, friend. I'm so glad to see you've joined our cause.
I haven't yet, though I'm interested. Aside from this peace and unity stuff, what are you guys all about?
I don't know much. The mind of the Master is so great. I do know that the children are marching north. We will take control of all the settlements, and baptize everyone. The baptism will change us and bring us closer to God, and there will never be war or destruction again.
That sounds like he's going to dump everybody in the FEV2 virus.
Of course he won't. He's the Master. He would never do that to his disciples. It is his holy power through baptism and the holy flame that will transform us. The virus is an evil of the old time, which I'm sure will be cleansed.
And where is the baptismal font?
Unfortunately, I have never been privileged enough to see the baptismal font. Perhaps if I offer enough praise to the Master, I will receive a blessing. Hail the Master. Hail the holy flame. Hail peace and unity.
I came here for instruction. Can I see the Master?
I'm afraid I can't help you. Only Father Morpheus communes with the Master. You can find him in the tower.
Is there anything I should know before I meet him?
This has been a wonderful talk, but I am falling behind in my praises. Farewell. Praise the Master. Praise the holy flame. Elkita sing the sacred songs.
Hello, friend. The Master's vision has made me truly alive for the first time. May I share my wonderful story with you?
Go ahead.
There was once a man who was so full of hate that he nearly died. But now, praise the Master, praise the holy flame, praise the vineyard of life.
Hello.
Hello, kid. Can you tell me what this place is about?
This is the Cathedral of the Children of the Cathedral. I don't know why they say cathedral twice. We worship the Master, and we yell a lot about peace and unity. It sounds kind of dumb, but the Master's real smart, so I guess it must be okay.
Tell me more about the Master.
Bye.
Oh, are you enter my sanctuary with a weapon in your hand? Oof. Get out.
Nice rod you got there. Is that why they call you Lasher?
The rod is a holy instrument, through which he instruct my charge. Clear the mind of evil thoughts, and allow them to better comprehend the glory of the Master.
That's a horrible thing to do to children.
Decadence is, prevent its evolution that is necessary for survival in hard world. Fortunately, I am a hard man who cares nothing for seductive pleasures. I see that you disagree with me. I do not care about your opinion. Get out of here. My cartes are not open to those who have not been consecrated. I must ask you to leave at once.
I just wanted to speak with the man in charge.
You should speak to Father Morpheus. He is in the tower, but it is unlikely that the Night King will allow you to pass.
What can you tell me about the Night King?
They serve the Master. They bring the pain of healing to the world. Angels in the night, who redeem the world by bloodshed. Curiosity is a foolhardy emotion, but double so when it comes to the Night King. That is your only warning. You have much to do now. Away with you.
Tell me about the cathedral.
The cathedral is a sanctuary for the human race. When the apocalypse fell on this full city, the cathedral was spared, which allowed for the birth of the Master. Whose healing, darkness, emerged from a terrible light. When he came, he saw this place, like it, a moral center. And so he have endeavored to administer, teaching to a place once consumed with idle pleasure. This is all you need to know.
Hello, friend. The Master's vision has made me truly alive for the first time. May I share my wonderful story with you?
Where might I meet this Master?
The Master looks above. The Master sits below. Watch the peace and the unity grow.
Hello, friend. The Master's vision has made me truly alive for the first time. May I share my wonderful story with you?
Who's in charge here?
You are in charge, friend, but the Master is your guide. Praise the Master. Praise the holy flamme that lights our way.
Hi, I'm meditating. Did you notice? Can I help you?
Care to share any favorite meditations with me?
Why, I could, but the ones who go through the servitor process are so much better than I am. Their minds are so much more focused on the Master than mine. Maybe after I get changed, I'll get better. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must get back to meditating.
You want to talk to Dan? Fine, but if I hear the word praise, I'll kill you.
I was looking for someone smart enough to tell me what's really going on around this joint.
It's not healthy to ask the wrong question, compadre. They have all the answer they want you to hear. People who ask the wrong questions, or people who screw up, well, they don't stay around very long.
Greetings. How can I help you? I do hope that you will take a moment to realize the significance of any future decisions you might make in regards to your soul.
Where can I get one of those fancy robes of yours?
Only trusted members of the cathedral are allowed to wear the holy purple.
I guess that answers my question. Thanks.
We have all sorts of special items to remember your trip to the cathedral. These memories can't be bought cheaply. You understand?
Thanks. Well, I've heard enough. Let's talk to their leader.
I don't remember inviting anyone to my room, and yet I have a visitor. Why?
Because I have such a deal for you.
What could you possibly offer me?
I'd like to offer you some information about your enemies.
And who might my enemies be?
From where I stand, it looks like everyone.
Tell me what you know.
Let's just say I know something to help you out against them.
Give me the information, or die a slow, lingering death.
Think the Master would be happy if you killed a vault dweller?
No? Then I will take the information from you. Guards!
Who is the Master?
It is he who brought me the vision of the unity, and it is he who will bring peace to this troubled land.
What are the Nightkin?
The Nightkin came to us a while ago. They might be hideous mutants, but they are extremely loyal to the children, as we all are.
Who is Nicole?
Nicole is the unfortunate, confused leader of the followers of the apocalypse.
Who are the followers?
My heart bleeds for them. Led down a false path, they don't know their efforts will bring only pain and suffering to their fellow beings.
After murking this worm, I stole the special key off his corpse. Now we can find out where this passageway leads. It doesn't look like there is anything down here. Aha, there is a book on the floor. Well, there is nothing particularly special about this book, but I might as well read it. It only took an hour to read the book and, what the?
Who are you and what are you doing down here?
Morpheus sent me with a message for the Master.
Morpheus would notice and are a slug like you, on his auch a mission. Guards.
After finding the secret passage, I battled through 3 levels of an underground vault until coming to this hallway.
It is getting harder to move forward. Your foot seems bonded to the floor. You look down, and the flesh of the floor is crawling up your leg. Teeth gnaw at your knees. Still, your headache gets worse. Something catches your attention, a flash of movement from the ceiling, and then a sliver of bone pierces your eye. With it comes the thoughts of the dead and tortured.
So what shall it be? Do you join the Unity, or do you die here?
Join.
Die!
Join.
Die!
If you can prove to me that your unity is the best course for humanity, then I will help you.
I don't have to prove anything to you!
Prove.
Your ego demands you tell me. All villains have this strange urge to explain everything.
I am no villain.
You have no idea what I or
The Unity
is about.
Then tell me what you are about.
The Unity will bring about the master race.
Master.
Master! One able to survive, or even
thrive
in the wasteland. As long as there are differences, we will tear ourselves apart fighting each other. We need one race.
Race.
One goal.
Goal.
One people to move forward to our destiny.
That race being mutants, of course.
Of course.
Mutants are best equipped to deal with the world today.
Who else? The ghouls? Please. Normals? They brought nuclear death to us all. This will be the age of mutants.
You mean to change all the others into mutants, as well?
All that resist, yes. And all those that are required for the
Unity
as well. The remainder will be allowed to live out their days, but under Unity control
and protection.
But none shall breed, for they will be the last of their race.
What about those who oppose you?
They will be punished for their insolence.
You mean to kill them all?
Of course not. Most will be offered a chance to become a mutant.
Those who deny this
opportunity
will be sterilized and
let go. Those that resist will be
executed.
You are one sick puppy. Time to put you down.
Think you can destroy me? Destroy
me?
Looky here, I've found an H-bomb.
He at one time also was talking about really taking on the world, and I remember 1958, an example which scared me to death and started myself thinking.
He wanted me to devise a plan to try to steal an H-bomb.
Your father wanted you to steal an H-bomb? Your father wanted you to steal an H-bomb?
Yeah, he wanted me to.
From whom?
Anybody and everybody. We got
This computer is labeled Atomic Access Computer.
Let's incinerate this place once and for all.
You have armed the warhead. A timer with 4 minutes has started the countdown.
4 minutes. I'd better get out of here. Now you understand, Fallout 1 and 2 are really a diatribe against Scientology. It is this truth that is the heart of the real movers and shakers of the anonymous collective. Internal Scientology documents were leaked in 1993 by former Scientologist member Stephen Fishman. We conclude, these files, which were subsequently leaked to the internet, served as the foundation for the hysterical accuracy of Fallout's mockery of the Church, that was later edified via WikiLeaks. Obviously, the Master in Fallout is a reference to none other than L. Ron Hubbard himself. If you need more evidence, you need look no further than a movie called The Master, a title his followers attribute to L. Ron. There is a master in Freemasonry as well. The Freemasons serve a god they call the Great Architect of the Universe. It is a polytheistic god they claim is the head of all religions. The G in the middle of the compass and T square stands for geometry, because they believe by studying the created, they are studying the creator. When it's just the opposite. The Masons know that they have predominantly destroyed the truth of who God really is, so they only require an initiate to profess belief in an ultimate deity. Incrementally they will expose you to their God, who is Satan, and because the initiate has no truth in them, they will be convinced to follow after this great architect and worship the sun. Like you saw earlier with the compass and straight edge, there is something quite extraordinary embedded within the framework of physical reality. However, there is a huge gap that we have not yet addressed. Unless you are a Satanist, you probably have no clue it was there. When we go back to the Grand Lodge in England, and we take a closer look at the pentagram in front of the door, you will notice it isn't the same as the pentagram from Metatron's cube. This time, what we're going to do here is draw a straight line of arbitrary length. Then make a vertical line to form an upside-down cross. Now make a mark anywhere to the left of the line and call it half. Simply double that length and make a circle with radius equal to 1. Next, we'll make a circle centered on our 1/2 mark, making the radius at the intersection of our vertical axis. This forms two crescents, or what appears to be an ellipse. Now, centered on this intersection, we will make another circle with radius intersecting the bisection on our horizontal axis, which was formed when we created our previous circle. Perfect. Now we've created our first two lengths. All we need to do is make two more circles centered on each of these 2 points, with radius through our vertical intercept formed by our initial circle. Simply connect the 5 intersections on our original circle. Now, we've created an equidistant pentagon. Each point has radius 1 from the origin. Connect the corners with a straight line. Amazing. Using this algorithm of circles and a straight edge, we've now created an equidistant pentagram, just like from the Freemasonic Lodge. Let's see if the measurements of this pentagram exhibit impressive mathematic qualities just like we saw from Metatron's cube. First, let's measure each edge of our pentagon. We expect these measurements to be odd since they are curvilinear lines. What do you know? They are each 1.165. Now, let's measure the longest lengths from each corner to each other, along our pentagram. Their lengths are each 1.89. Through connecting the corners of our equidistant pentagon, it created a smaller equidistant pentagon in the middle. Each edge of this pentagon is equal to 0.45. To find the lengths of each arm of the pentagram we can measure it, and double-check our answer by subtracting 0.45 from the length, 1.89, to find that each arm of the star is 0.725 in length. Finally, let's take a look at the angles which were created when we used this algorithm to see if there is any symmetry there. Wow! Not surprisingly, we see that each angle is equal to 180 divided by 5, which is 36. So internally, we are going to see angles that are all multiples of 36. For example, this angle is 72, this one is 36 times 3, or 108. Earlier, with Metatron's cube, once we knew that each angle was 30 or 60, we then realized that we could simply draw a ton of 30 and 60 degree lines, and by doing so it would create an infinite amount of Metatron's pentagrams. Similarly, with the equidistant pentagram all we need to do is create 36 degree lines and it will create an infinite amount of equidistant pentagrams. Yet, there is something else impressive here. The shortest length here formed by our internal pentagon is 0.45, when we add it to the next shortest line of 0.725, it equals the third shortest line on each edge of our pentagram. When we add this third line to our second line, it equals the length of our longest line which is each length of our pentagram. Incredible. Now, take the shortest length from our internal pentagon which is 0.45, then use it to divide the next shortest length of 0.725 and we get... Wow! We've found our second transcendental number, phi or 1.618 to another infinite stream of non-repeating numbers that humans will never find the end of. It doesn't end there. take the second shortest length of 0.725, and use it to divide our third length of 1.165, again, we get phi. Repeat the division for the fourth length of 1.89 by the third length, and once more, we get phi. You can keep going with this to infinity if you want. Simply add 1.89 plus the previous length and divide it by the previous length. This is called the golden ratio. Now that I've determined the rate of change for this geometric form, I can write an equation to continue this sequence for any number. Of course, with this use of geometry we really don't need to. As you can see from this pentagram, it forms a proportional pentagon in the middle. So if we use the outside lines as the internal pentagon of a larger pentagram, we can just draw straight lines from each edge, and we know that where they intersect it will be the exact length of the next divinely proportional ratio. Or, we can simply piece it up and see what happens when we make a bunch of 36-degree angled lines. At this point, you've nearly seen every logo or symbol on the planet, since they are predominantly variations of these two geometric proportions. The more cleverly disguised one of these two symbols are, the more respected the creator of the company or logo is among the occult. A clever disguise of these geometric figures is akin to a secret handshake and says, "Hey, we are part of the club." For example, we know L. Ron and Jack Parsons were involved in sex magic rituals to summon the supreme Thelamite goddess Babylon. Aleister Crowley integrated the worship of Thelma into the Ordo Templi Orientis. Take a look at the Illuminati symbol. It's called a unicursal hexagram. A unicursal form is one that is drawn without raising your pen. The occult has found paranormal within unicursal forms. For this example, let's get back to Metatron's cube. Instead of completing it, all we've got to do is leave out the top and bottom parts of the two triangles. And there it is, just that simple. we are really seeing that Elrond built an almost identical religion off of Crowley's. In the middle is the Rosicrucian 5-petaled rose. We also saw where this came from at the tail end of our 36-degree pentagram lines. Occultists revere the 5-petaled flower because it forms a pentagram that is equal to the divine proportion. Also because it symbolizes the female gender, which they exalt since only women grow a child. We know Freemasonic spouses and daughters are eligible to join the followers of the Eastern Star, but, aside from what we've seen, why would they call it that?
I am in need of help, child. Can you help me?
Who are you?
I am Harry, the Star Brother in charge of the rocket ship. We are going to use it to travel to Quetzal.
Can I ask you something else? What are you doing?
What I'm doing is preparing the ship for the grand trip to the Starfather. We're very close right now.
As it turns out, Quetzal is actually the planet Elrond said to avoid. Venus. Quetzal is referred to as the morning star and the Lord Star of the Dawn. In the book of the prophet Amos, Adonai rebukes Israel for creating images and worshipping one single star. When tracking the orbit of Venus from our geocentric view here on Earth, we find that it makes a very unique track across the night sky. Every 584 days, it reaches a single point before changing direction. In so doing, Venus creates an equidistant pentagram in the sky every 8 years. As a result of this geometric shape created by what is, for all intents and purposes, a star, we shouldn't be surprised that Pythagoras is credited for realizing Venus is sometimes the morning star, that is, the star of the dawn when it can be viewed shortly before sunrise, and also the evening star, when it reappears as the second brightest object in the night sky, after disappearing for some time. All religious lore and legend are fantastical human narratives surrounding this cycle of Venus, usually referring to its disappearance and reappearance as its death and rebirth. When we gaze into the heavens, we naturally describe the view as being full of wonder and amazement. Truly, there is something fixating about the night sky. The reason for this is that although the stars seem to be at a standstill, in reality, they are in motion, rotating above our heads. It's this spinning motion that is captivating our mind. While we can draw a spiral from the phi ratio of our equidistant pentagram, near identically, 0 plus 1 is 1, when we add 1 plus itself it equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, 13 plus 8 is 21, 21 plus 13 is 34, and if we keep using this formula, known as the Fibonacci sequence, we find phi by dividing the previous number by the next number in the sequence, in the same fashion we did earlier with the equidistant pentagram. It approximates phi within only 4 iterations, eventually collapsing on the precise golden ratio. Further, we see that by drawing this sequence with circles, each branch actually forms a spiral out of the whole. These spirals form naturally in systems of all types. When we add cold cream to hot coffee, the two liquids form a spiral until their temperatures equalize, at which point, the liquids will still spiral but it will be impossible to distinguish them. Steam, as it rises from our cup, also forms into a spiral in relation to phi. The air we breathe is in fact moving in spirals all around us, though we cannot see it.
Who are you, and why are you wearing that suit? You haven't seen one of those in a long time.
When have you seen a suit like this before?
Oh, you know, when we got that last batch of pure strain humans in, eating there is still one in the holding pens. Why do you ask?
No reason. How are the experiments going?
It is not going well. We've been injecting the FEV directly into the pineal gland, but I'm not getting the results I'd hoped for.
What results are you getting?
The master's truth is revealed, resulting in increased psychic ability, but the poor souls become terminally insane and must be sequestered and relieved to keep them from harming themselves or others.
Where are they being kept?
In our northwest of here. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Thanks for your help. Bye. So the psychotic doctor said the people that received the injections are up in this room. There they are now. They have nothing intelligible to say, but they do have this strange head device. It was René Descartes who stated, "The pineal gland is the principal seat of the soul." This statement should not be taken lightly since it was Descartes who codified duality, which is the principal reason for the present human stagnation. As you've seen by the celestial tract of Venus, it actually isn't so absurd to believe that the Earth is the center of the solar system. It was only through empirical observations and very close scientific study that the theory of a heliocentric system was not just postulated, more importantly, it was proven. Instead of studying Descartes, whose theories dominate much of upper education, we should be studying is the progenitor of these observations, Johannes Kepler. Kepler realized that our eyes are seeing in a pentagonal pattern with a singular blind spot in the internal pentagon of vision. When we view an object, we are really seeing two different versions of the same object as observed by each eye. These are then interpreted by the brain with neither eye being the sole source of information. It is the combination of the two versions by the brain that comprises our vision, or what we call the third eye. Where and how this exactly takes place is a subject of scientific pursuit and speculation. We cannot determine exactly what is transmitted within our neural network. This is why the push for cybernetic organisms and dualistic theory is so strong. Some people want to know exactly how the mind works rather than accepting it for what it is. We can speculate that the Eye of Horus from ancient Egypt is not an eye at all, but a depiction of the inner brain. This top line would be the corpus callosum, the top of the eye is the fornix, this point is the anterior commissure. Then this dip here would be the optic chiasma, the pupil then, is the third ventricle, and at this juncture would be the pineal gland, that is then connected to the sensual cerebellum, where the majority of the neurons are located even though it only takes up 1/10 of the brain. It makes sense that this inner brain is the seat of the soul, as well as, where the two eyes combine to create vision, since it is centrally located and connects the two hemispheres into one central area. However, as we saw earlier, within the inner ear is a spiral mechanism called the cochlea that is integrated with our visual system within our brains to maintain our balance. In some species the pineal gland has been linked as a light-sensing organ, overtly connecting it to eye sensory perception. As light enters into our eyes and passes to our brains, we know that some information is passed into the superior colliculus, which happens to be the neighbor of the pineal gland. It's probable that the pineal gland operates in conjunction with the inner ear and that it may be the conductor of dreams. Some believe that the pineal gland is the starting point of a golden spiral. Whatever the cause, when we view a large single-colored canvas, such as a large bright green wall, We see spiraling bright spots and we might become dizzy as our brain attempts to make sense of what we are viewing. Take a look at this picture. When we look into the center of it, it appears as if the lines are moving, but they aren't. It's long been noted that by staring into a spiral that is spinning, humans can become hypnotized. On September 13, 1848, while blasting rock for the railroad in Vermont, Phineas Gage accidentally leaned over the blast hole as the dynamite detonated, sending a large metal bar through his left cheek and through the left side of his brain, coming out the top of his skull. To the world's surprise, within only a few minutes Gage was up, talking and walking just fine. The result of this injury was a new understanding that the brain uses localized functionality, and the field of modern psychology was born. While Gage continued to live for over a decade after the injury occurred, the injury altered his behavior drastically. Instead of being the thoughtful long-term self-restrained man he had been, his temper became short, and his impulsiveness amplified. He became gross, profane, coarse and vulgar, to such a degree that he could no longer associate with his fellow human beings. He would devise many plans, which he quickly abandoned for more easily attainable short-term goals. Psychologists learned from this experience that particular activities of brain functionality occurred in particular locations of the brain. Since Phineas's left eye was disgouged and the left side of his cerebrum was destroyed, the right side of his brain came to dominate his actions. Accordingly, his thinking, long-term planning, ability to remain lucid, and goal orientation was eradicated. Instead, he was disorganized, impulsive, unpredictable, and illogical. Since simple language comprehension is located on the left side of the brain, but language itself is on the right side of the brain, he was unable to control his statements, blurting out the first thing that came to his mind. This was the beginning of abnormal psychology. Future psychologists sought out these sorts of abnormal cases, aggregating the data to map out many functions of the brain. In classical conditioning, it was found that if you rang a bell before feeding a dog, and did this for some time, then if you rang the bell, the dog would salivate before the food ever appeared in its presence. If you've ever been on a farm, you ring the feeding bell when it's time to feed and every animal on the ranch comes running. Funny thing is, on a farm, there is usually a human dinner bell that works the same way. The end result of this mid-19th century development of the field of psychology was that most psychologists went into advertising, and subsequently, cinema. You see, psychologists had gotten all they needed from abnormal psychology to ascertain how to manipulate the minds of potential consumers in the middle and lower classes. The thing was, there were moral restrictions preventing an even deeper understanding of the workings of the human mind. You see, it wasn't exactly ethical to test the next wave of theories that emerged out of this era on the humans. It had gotten to the point where early psychologists needed human test subjects with no ethical restrictions. Enter Adolf Hitler. At the center of Nazi Germany was a large-scale pursuit of understanding the human brain for ill-gotten aims. Nazi Germany, when viewed objectively, bypassing the racist satanic agenda, it can be observed that Hitler was more interested in understanding the functionality of the human nervous system than global domination. The Nazis were hooking up people, dead or alive, to electricity and running infinite amounts of voltage through their central nervous systems just to see what would happen. They conducted open surgery on humans without ethical limitations. In the field of media, they implemented these psychological techniques on their own citizens and turned a volatile nation into a gargantuan mass of groupthink. It is through these torture experiments that the modern world gained much of their documentation on psychology. So you are probably wondering, why is phi called the divine proportion? Specifically, because of the human body. Since we are made in the image of God, phi is called the God numeral. When a baby forms inside a womb, a woman is seemingly growing a god within. For this reason the occult exalts the female gender as the life giver, neglecting the logic that life requires a paternal catalyst. So to mean, an egg alone is nothing without this external agent. Therefore it's really that women are life acceptors and nurturers. Take a look at Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, named for the architect Vitruvius from classical Greece. His notes claim that a man can fit into a circle and a square, and states that these proportions are used in Grecian architecture. Here, Da Vinci is recreating these proportions for his own uses in the rediscovery period. These marks are there for measurement purposes. Down here is the scale he is using, which are in cubits. What we find is the length from the center of the body to the wrist is 2.113. while the length from the center to the elbow is 1.303. Astoundingly, when we divide the longer length by the shorter, it equals phi. Now, take the length from the elbow to the tip of the finger and divide it by the length from the elbow to the wrist. It also equals phi. But this is not the end of the story. We saw with Metatron's pentagram, every length doubled to equal the next. When we take a look at our hand, if we divide the first joint of our finger by the second joint of our finger, it's similarly equal to phi. Now here is where the trick comes. When we add the first joint plus the second, it exactly equals the length of the third joint, from our knuckle to our second joint, then our entire finger is exactly equal to the fourth joint, which is the palm of our hand from our wrist to our knuckle. When a man separates his legs to form a 60-degree angle, it will lower his height by 1/14. By doing so, it will give us 2 center points and enable him to fit into a circle and a square as prescribed by Vitruvius. The center of the circle is his navel, while the center of the square is the root of the penis. From here we can see that from the bottom of his foot to the knee is exactly equal to the length from the root of the penis to the knee. Then, these two lengths combined, being the length of his leg, also equals the length of the man's torso from the top of his head to the root of his penis. So what we are witnessing is two growth functions at work. One that doubles, and one that equals phi. Starting with Da Vinci's mark and the man's foot, when we connect it up to the top of his head, which bisects the square, we create an angle that is exactly equal to our friend from the equidistant pentagram, at 72 degrees. Let's draw both sides. If we try to find a pentagram from here, it quickly becomes apparent that none exist. However, it turns out that an exact 60-degree line is created when we connect the foot here to the navel. Since we know the length of a man's outstretched arms equals his height, and with the man 1/14 shortened, we expect that by connecting the central feet to each fingertip it forms an approximate 60-degree line. Similarly, a near 60-degree line is created when we connect the upraised fingers to the 1/4 mark at the knees. And here we have it. The T-square and compass are embedded within the proportional archetype for architectural designs. There are two things that are going on within our perception, the same as we saw with the Vitruvian Man. 1. Our eyes are designed to see curved edges, in the same way that a compass makes curved lines. And 2. Our eyes are designed to see straight edges, just like with a T-square. Think about playing a computer game or viewing a piece of art. Due to designing lines with vanishing points and perspective techniques, we actually see depth on a completely flat, motionless surface. These principles are taken from real-life eye perception and applied for use on a flat surface. When we walk down a hallway in real life, or look across a room, our eyes are calculating distances and sizes of objects in our unconscious mind. Our brain uses our eyes as a vortex that continually seeks to detect motion and transmit that information to the brain, in case we need to fight or take flight. But our eyes transmit just a flat surface image that our brains interpret. When we view the equidistant pentagram, it is fixating to our minds because it fits into the natural vortex of vision as our eyes are taking in sight. Thus we are picking up on the edges of the golden ratio where they connect. Men, for example, like curvy things, like curvy women, and it follows that aerodynamic cars are also curvy. Impressionists, like Picasso, utilize just impression of the curvy outlines and have discovered that men will even become fixated by inanimate objects that barely hold the appearance of a woman's curves. While the pineal gland forms a gold spiral in context against the brain, likewise, galaxies take on the formation of this spiral equal to phi. Yahweh designed the stars for the engineering of the internal workings within our minds. Modern psychology is under the impression that empirical observation creates a physiological alteration within the fibers of our brains. Thus the positioning of the sun, stars and moon, are literally inscribed within our unconscious minds to form a matrix for consciousness. Our unconscious mind is so powerful and precise that it understands the positioning of these celestial bodies at all times, even while we sleep. As a result of the transit of Venus, the star sometimes appears on the right side of the moon and at other times it appears on the left side of the moon. For our example, let's say it appears on the right side of the moon as we observe it from Earth. Now let's look at the moon. We may be thinking that our attention is totally focused on the moon, but our unconscious mind is also focusing on the star as well. What our unconscious is really seeing appears to be two eyes. One of them is small, and one of them appears to be large. Clearly, the moon is the large eye, but these two lights are in fact the brightest lights in the sky, and whenever we look up, we are naturally focusing on them. Looking at the Turkish flag, we can now ascertain the symbols on them which are ubiquitous throughout Islam, but unclaimed by the religion. The star is Venus, and the crescent is not only as a crescent waning moon, the last phase before the moon disappears, but more relevantly, it is the shape required to create an equidistant pentagram. Viewing the Kaaba, we notice that it is an enormous cube. This is because Kaaba in the Middle Eastern language of Sumerian means cube. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, was the priest of Midian where the Kaaba is. Yahweh did not give the Israelites the Torah yet, but Moses was familiar with the customs of worship for that region. God said specifically, to ask Pharaoh for a 3-day holiday into the desert where the Kaaba is. When Moses went to Pharaoh the first time, his request was to allow the Israelites to go into the wilderness on a holiday, or Hajj, to circle in the desert. When Muslims go on a Hajj, they circle the cube, also called the Mother, to form what looks like a rotating galaxy. Inside the cube is a meteorite shaped like a phallus. It's the only idol Muhammad chose to save from the pantheon of its mother religion. The peephole to look into the rock represents the female genitalia, just like a Christmas wreath. Whoever found the meteorite shaped like a phallus, simply invented the idea that Venus gifted it to mankind from her star to edify the mother religion. If it wasn't shaped like a penis, it would probably be laying somewhere in the rocks or buried in the sand. In the Torah, God instructs the Israelites to bind the words of the Torah on their hands and to tie them as a sign upon their heads. They chose to represent this action by using a cube, or Kaaba. The study of the cube, as in Metatron's cube, is therefore called Kabbalah. In Scientology there is a cubic symbol that is also a part of their religion. To build just the Metatron's cube, we need to make exactly 5 circles. This looks surprisingly similar to the Olympic symbol. For sake of perception, let's go ahead and rotate it 30 degrees. Counting each edge of the cube, we find that there are 12 edges, just like there are 12 disciples of Jesus, and 12 months in a year. But Jesus said, "I am a fellow servant with you," and does not regard equality with the Father. Upon review, we see that there are really 13 disciples of Yahweh, including Jesus, and although the cubic has 12 edges, Jesus represents the echod of the cube, meaning the whole thing that ties it all together. Thus Yeshua is the 13th disciple of Adonai. And occasionally, during a leap year, he is the 13th month. When we treat the cube as a 3-dimensional solid object by removing the lines that we wouldn't be able to see, we can observe the cubic in plain sight. Of course we can easily create the six-pointed star within it as well, since this is the most prevalent geometric shape on Earth. And to demonstrate our mastery of platonic forms, let's play around with it for just a few seconds. In Islam, Muhammad banned all depictions of God. This is because they would just be drawing a woman that looks like Vishnu all the time. Further, it's a deceptive religion. One of the names of Allah is Al-Makka, which means the deceiver. So, instead they represent their god by using geometrical patterns, observable to be nothing more than variations of the sacred geometry you've already seen. They more or less conceal those original patterns within their art. Further, the Islamic art tradition holds that you must slightly twist the pattern a few degrees so that it is not perfectly symmetric. This tradition can be observed in these paintings. This slight twist emphasizes the hypnotic nature of fire occurring within our eyes, and perpetuates the hypnotic trance mankind is under. Further, this degree adjustment is a microcosm of the variation between magnetic north and true north. True north emerges as humans realize there is an amazing reality that the Earth is divisible by 3, with a point perfectly centered at the very top of it, called the North Pole. Essentially, nautical miles is the natural measurement of the Earth. Its length is found by dividing the equator by 360. Amazingly, we find a distance equal to a yard is the least common denominator of Earth. While magnetic deviation varies with location, making it imprecise for navigation, true north is very precise. God designed the Earth and his humans to understand that it takes a cognitive deductive process to make this whole thing called life function effectively. He designed us in his image so we would be creators, like him. This is why we have to work to be successful at life. In order to accomplish tasks, it often requires intelligent decision-makings to create the best outcomes for ourselves. Thus, we use true north as a mainstay today, while magnetic north was only an assistant to get us to arrive at this end. If you are a hacker, you understand that hacking a computer system can only occur because it is based on a science. It's like the old payphone trick: if you record the dial tone and then replay it into the receiver, you will get free phone calls. This isn't magic, it's a scientifically created backdoor emergent from the laws of physics. A good programmer can be distinguished from a poor programmer, because a good programmer's code can do in 3 lines what a bad programmer does in 50. There are 2 different popular operating system kernels, one is DOS command prompt and the other is Unix. Unix is a far superior coding method than Windows, because DOS is a command control system and Unix uses a more natural system. Both have their uses, but both have systematic axioms which can be utilized to gain access to systems beyond anyone's control. This is the same thing as the spiral backdoor to our perception. Satan taught people to exploit this backdoor to the mind by twisting everything. By doing so to God's people, they will be rendered ineffective. Think about it, in today's culture a person may say, "Hey, that guy or girl is straight edge." God says, "Stay away from crooked speech." If a picture on the wall is hanging unevenly, we call it cockeyed. There are plenty of examples, all of them mean odd, or queer. These people think it's really cool to change an S to a Z when they spell words, or change a C to a K, or an A to an E. But the truth is, these people are all fags. Fags think they are cool, but they aren't, and their music sucks. They think they are smart to make a super secret code for their Masonic book, but their code can be deciphered by a child. The question is, who is the Star Father?
Name's Renesco. Just tell me what it is you want. Well, whatever it is you are, you look like one of those sun-worshipping primates under all that get-up.
After the flood in Genesis chapter 9 verse 22, Noah is sodomized by his middle son Ham. Ham's grandson, Nimrod, was the first powerful ruler on earth. He ruled the first city that was built when all the people were united and spoke the same language. They decided to build a city with a huge tower that reached up to the heavens so they would not be scattered. They feared being scattered because Cain was cursed to wander. To overcome this possibility, they believed that if they built a city to rival God, he could not scatter them. Nimrod had a wife, Semiramis. When Nimrod dies, Semiramis cuts off his penis. Where he was buried, a coniferous tree grows out of his grave, and symbolizes his phallus. Semiramis says that Nimrod becomes reincarnated as the sun, and since he was a mighty hunter, it only makes sense that he is pulled across the sky by reindeer. Accordingly, in this geocentric system, this is how the sun moves around Earth every day. While laying out, Semiramis says the sun rays impregnate her and she gives birth to Tammuz. Tammuz is then reincarnated as Nimrod, and she remarries Nimrod by marrying her son, Tammuz. Semiramis has the ability to heal and forgive wrongdoing. Every year for Tammuz's birthday, which is on the winter solstice, December 21st, people would line up to visit her in a coniferous forest, where they would decorate the trees, representing Nimrod's phallus with spheres representing his testicles. In order for Semiramis to forgive sins, they had to bring her a gift. The gift she required was a baby. They would put the baby under the tree and light the trees on fire. When God came and saw what they were doing, he saw they were constructing a huge phallus tower, and sacrificing their children to the Queen Mother. So God gained access to their minds and changed their languages so that they were similar, but not identical, at which point God physically separated Pangaea into islands, each according to their respective languages, with some staying in the region they were in we know as Mesopotamia. Thus the people got scattered, took with them this form of worship all over the earth under different names since their language had been changed. The Egyptians called her Isis. Nimrod became Osiris, and their son Tammuz became Horus. Eastern religions call her Vishnu, Nimrod is Shiva, and Brahma is Tammuz. In Mexico today, Semiramis is known as the Virgin of Guadalupe. In Christianity, she is known as Virgin Mary, and Tammuz is known as Jesus. In the Santa story, the name of the reindeer are all variations of the different names of Tammuz. The list goes on and on, and on. All are fantastical variations of the same story. You are probably wondering, where is this story in the Bible? Like, where did this all come from? Don't you find it interesting that Jesus said to the people of his generation, even the Queen of the South will stand up in judgment against them, for even she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and he is greater than Solomon? But just who is this queen? There is a negative connotation as he compares her to Nineveh, as if to say, even she will condemn you. One thing that should be understood is, before the Torah was given to Moses on Mount Sinai, God literally walked and talked with humans. After the Torah was given, God still walked and talked with man. In fact, we serve a God who takes great pleasure in letting us know that he is God, because he is. Yahweh is a God who directly intervenes in people's lives with miracles. This way we can trust him. Before the Torah, the teaching and instructions of God were passed down verbally from those who were cool enough that God chose to talk to them. Some of the things within the Bible allude to and conjunct with this verbal Torah. It is written that it is the duty of kings to uncover hidden meanings. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, we see that God created a man in his own image. It says next that he created them, male and female. Surprisingly, this is a separate event from what occurs in chapter 2. The first time God created man mated with all the animals, but none were found that suited him. Man at this point did not know what he was doing was wrong because he had not eaten from the tree of the knowledge of what is good or evil. So God, while man was awake, created a woman out of the mud of the earth, and Adam witnessed her creation. What he witnessed disgusted him and turned him off towards her. When man and woman came together, they actually did not get along very well, as the woman tried to dominate the man by being on top during sex, while the man was trying to be on top. Eventually, man was exasperated with the situation and the woman left. God then put the man to sleep and pulled a rib out of man to form a woman. Because the rib came from man, she was flesh of his flesh, and psychologically submissive to her parent creation, while man was not revolted by her creation since he was asleep. You see, God told man not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil before woman existed, therefore it was up to the man to tell the woman. The woman in turn, listened to the serpent who was really the first woman, embodied in a serpent. She was jealous of the woman and of the man who ruled earth, so she set out to deceive Eve in order to dominate man. Eve didn't actually disobey God, she disobeyed her husband. God was upset at Adam because he disobeyed God. God was upset with Eve because she convinced Adam to disobey God. Moreover, Adam did not take responsibility for his disobedience. God then cursed the serpent more than all other animals to crawl on its belly and therefore eat dust. It's possible that prior to this the serpent had wings. The serpent lied, because it said that it is not true, you will surely die. This was a half-truth. The snake meant that you would not die the second you ate the fruit, but the truth is, by allowing sin to enter their lives, death would eventually occur because disobedience of God leads to death. Obeying God's commands leads to eternal life. God knew this was going to happen and therefore man was to rule over the woman, putting to rest the previous domination struggle between the first woman and man. Further, God put animosity between the serpent and the woman, and between both of their descendants. The Torah is gender specific when it states, he, specifically referring to male descendants, will bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel. God then curses the ground, so that man has to work to bring forth food from it until he dies. Communism, the system of Satan, embraces this aspect of work and seeks to form a system which overcomes this curse to spite God, while it also embraces death as learned from Solomon's writings when he goes insane in Ecclesiastes. He states, I saw the dead as being the most fortunate as they rested from their toil, while even more blessed are the unborn. Absent work, in an utopian place such as the Garden of Eden, which is heaven on earth, communism cannot exist. It goes on to say in Genesis chapter 4, that the sons of Adam and Eve took wives. Obviously, we know that there were people living outside of the Garden of Eden on earth already, because God made humankind in chapter 1, and he did not yet plant a garden until chapter 2. The woman from Adam, prior to being called Eve, the mother of all living, was simply referred to as woman. From this we infer that the lineage of Adam and Eve was different than the other humankind that were on the planet outside of the garden. When it says he created them to rule over the earth in chapter 1, God actually created many humans when he made humankind. It's vital to understand that Freemasons are architects. They, or a group holding identical beliefs, have controlled all aspects of development, presently and historically, throughout the world. When a new building is constructed, such as for the government and many houses, the Freemasons will have a ceremony and determine the precise location of the cornerstone. These cornerstones are ornamental and include the date of construction. It is critical that the cornerstones are the most precisely laid brick because the following stones are based off of it. If the cornerstone is laid improperly, as the other bricks are laid, they will become off-center and the building will be crooked and structurally unsound. Hence the phrase, Jesus is the only cornerstone, while we are all the other bricks in the wall. Similarly, bridges include a cornerstone. At the behest of George Washington, a Freemason, as were many of the founding fathers, such as Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, the area of Washington, D.C. was selected to be the place for the capital of the new country. It was established by an act of Congress in 1790. Prior to development, most of the area was open swampy marshland and thus, every single detail of the city's layout was planned. Landfill was brought in for present and future developments. Thomas Jefferson was the first to sketch an outline for the new capital. But naturally, it was from France, the location that the predominant elements of Freemasonry emerged. The architect, Pierre-Charles L'Enfant, was chosen. Pierre was a man familiar with the ancient elements of design. Using a topographic idea for the new capital, L'Enfant's ambitious plan was undertaken. With these elements in mind, and acknowledging the designs were submitted to the Freemasonic Congress, as well as the President, for approval. The question becomes, why exactly did they design the capital in the manner that they did? Looking at the main Capitol building where the most critical activities of government occur, Congress, why is it intentionally designed to look exactly like an owl? Is it because a group of owls is called a parliament that they did so? But what about the mascot of the Illuminati secret society? Since the Illuminati is an offshoot of Freemasonry, is there a connection between this owl and the topographic view of the federal congressional building? And what about the mascot of Bohemian Grove? Is it because Bohemia is of German origins and so is the Bavarian Illuminati that they chose the symbol of an owl for their respective secret societies? Is it because a Bohemian lifestyle identifies with the idea of owls since Bohemians stay up partying and are carefree of the morality as defined in the Torah? But what about the National Press Club? Is the owl their symbol because they stay up late working like owls? Yet, how does any of this explain the symbol for the future farmers of America? Truly nothing about farming has anything even remotely to do with an owl, nor do farmers stay up late working as a norm. Maybe, just maybe, the owl emerges from the Athenian goddess Diana whose symbol is an owl. And maybe, just maybe, this Athenian goddess is the demigod referred to from Isaiah chapter 34, verse 14, Lilith, who will lurk there and find herself a place to rest. There the hoot owl will nest. These two theirs refer to the same place and are the same thing. Lilith is referred to as the night monster. The owl is the most superior of all nocturnal predators. It doesn't lie down and crouch for its prey, it swoops down and strikes at will. Its vision sees in darkness. Parkins and Hubbard were engaged in summoning a goddess named Babylon to manifest as a physical woman and bring her to Parkins. Further, Parkins says that L. Ron was in close communication with his guardian angel. He describes her as a woman. The occult knows that these are all one in the same. In Revelation 17, the Bible describes the woman Babylon as a whore, and whores are creatures of the night. Ravenous women looking for their next man to consume, she has no care for the morality of the Torah, but rather gives birth to earth's obscenities as the antithesis of morality. She swoops in on a man and clutches him in her claws of death. It turns out that the first woman created is actually Lilith. The question then becomes, what came before creation? Obviously, God says let us make humankind in our image. When he says, our image, of whom is he referring? When we go to John chapter 1, we see that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, he was with God in the beginning. All things came to be through him, and without him nothing made had being. It goes on to explain that this Word is none other than the King, Jesus. But since it says, without him nothing was made, then we know that Jesus was first, but then came the angels after him, then us. Now we know that our image is a reference to God himself, Jesus, and the angels, but the question is, who or what exactly is Jesus? Well, you nailed it, the Metatron. The Talmud states that there were definitely two deities in heaven, one is Yahweh, the other is Yahweh's scribe and son, Metatron, who happens to be identical to the Father but separate. But since Lilith appears to be a physical person in the Bible as the Queen of the South, maybe Metatron does as well. We know he is the priest of God Most High from John, thus his title is Melchizedek. We see this in Genesis 15 verse 18, when the king of Salem who is Melchizedek, meets with Abram and the king of Sodom and then he blesses Abram. Abram knows who he is and responds appropriately by giving the king of Jerusalem a tenth of everything. The reality that Jesus is this same person is repeated in Hebrews 6 and 7. Now you are beginning to see that this angel is a very specific, unique angel. In fact, you have probably heard of him as the Archangel Michael when really, Michael is a title meaning Melchizedek. What's surprising here is not only that Jesus, Melchizedek, and the Archangel are one in the same, but that he appears as a physical human to Abram as the King of Jerusalem. While Christians know God the Son as a little wimpy pipsqueak, Jews know him as the mighty angel of God Most High, God himself, and the King of humanity. In fact, you will discover that this particular angel is throughout the entire Bible as the most awesome and greatest feared angelic being ever to exist. Just a few verses after Melchizedek appeared to Abraham, we see that God himself also appeared to Abraham, so sometimes God Most High will appear to man, while at other times, it's this particular angel. In between them, are the brothers of the supreme angel. For example, the angels that destroy Sodom and Gomorrah in verse 19, we know are the brothers of the head angel, because it does not specifically say the angel of Adonai, which the Bible always says when referring to him. You'll see that this very awesome angel was with the Israelites on their exodus from Egypt, the whole time. Chapter 15 verse 19, next, the angel of God, who was going ahead of the camp of Israel, moved away and went behind them. There was cloud and darkness here. Then you see that the angel was breaking off chariot wheels and wrecking the army of Egypt to slow them down in verse 25. So the cloud by day and the fire by night was actually surrounding the angel himself.
Let your true self be revealed. Diablo.
This angel remains a sort of mysterious bystander wrecking the enemies of the Israelites right alongside them, until in chapter 23 verse 20, you really begin to understand who this angel is. The Lord says, I am sending my angel ahead of you to guard you on the way and bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him, listen to what he says and do not rebel against him, because he will not forgive any wrongdoing of yours, since my name resides in him. Side note, if you haven't realized, this is exactly what God said about the human form of the angel, Yeshua, when he was baptized by John. If you listen to what he says and do everything I tell you, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and a foe to your foes. When my angel goes ahead of you and brings you to your land, I will make an end of them. You are not to worship their gods, serve them or follow their practices, rather, you are to demolish them completely and smash their standing stones to pieces. What standing stones are these, you may be asking? You guessed it, the phallus, also called Astaroth poles, and you know them today as maypoles, because another name of Semiramis is Asherah, Ishtar, or Easter. These are also called totem poles in American Indian culture. We know that the Israelites did not destroy the people and their idols completely. Instead, when Joshua entered into the land, he allowed the people to live and subjected them to forced labor. As a result of these slaves, they exposed Israel to the worship of pagan gods, which are just images to the hosts of heaven, like the Kaaba stone. What non-Jews have failed to realize is that this angel, he never goes away. In fact, he was in the tabernacle the entire time up until Solomon, when God divides Israel, because God said, Solomon, if you worship other gods I will abandon you. After that, the angel can be found doing such things as writing on the wall. It was this angel who killed all the firstborn of Egypt, and that's not all he did. He also led Israel into battle for every war they ever fought for since forever. It was for his glory that Gideon led 300, and we know these 300 were a special group of warriors to be brothers in arms of the angel. Thus we need to reevaluate who God is. After David took his census in 2 Samuel chapter 24:16, the angel of the Lord was at the threshing floor. David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel striking the people. Then the Lord said, Enough. And the angel of the Lord stopped his assault. In 1 Chronicles 21 verse 29, for at that time the tabernacle of the Lord was in the high place at Gibeon. But David could not go into its presence to consult God, because the sword of the angel of the Lord had struck him with terror. Obviously the angel of the Lord, also known as God, was in the tabernacle. On day 1 of creation God created Satan and the angels. We know that Metatron was already created. At the end of Genesis chapter 1, Satan convinced a third of the angels to rebel against God and was subsequently cast out of God's heaven. At this point Lilith and Satan teamed up to deceive Adam and Eve. Satan wanted control of the earth where he was imprisoned, and Lilith wanted revenge. In chapter 6, we see for the first time the mention of the sons of God, in verse 2. These sons of God are none other than the angels. While some refer to these angels as the fallen angels, meaning demons, this is not accurate. The fallen angels are the brothers of the archangel Metatron. The word fallen here does not have the same semantic value as cast out, it really means descended from above. The angels found the daughters of men attractive, so they married whomever they wanted. You can infer that the angels are all male here, because it says they found the daughters of men attractive, rather than saying they saw that the human sons were really cool to hang out with. Thus all depictions of a winged woman are Lilith. Their enemies are the actual demons who rebelled against God and were cast out. These demons also mated with humankind, their offspring, as well as the offspring of Lilith, are at odds against the angels and the chosen descendants of Adam. Since we now understand that the angels were with God when he created humankind and the earth, we also must acknowledge that they watched God construct it. They watched God build the Garden of Eden with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Satan in particular, watched God create man, and thus he knows how God did it. When Satan and his pack of disobedient angels started having their way with the people on earth, the sons of God sought to assist the humans against the demons, and they did such things as help Noah build the arch. The thing is, God designed human beings so he could have physiological access into their minds, a back door if you will. Historically and presently, God speaks to humans in dreams and visions. Furthermore, there are things occurring within our minds beyond even the most astute comprehension, such as we were discussing with our field vision. While Satan and his rebellious angels watched creation, they thought they knew how God did it, but they do not know exactly. They understood the system of God and that it involves literal physical applications. The physics of the universe require literal physical objects, e.g., the Earth's gravity is formed by the size of the Earth. The moon's pull against this gravity causes the female cycle and the rise and fall of the ocean. The orbits of Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mars, Neptune and Mercury and all celestial entities, similarly, have their own physiological effects on the mind and body. Satan thought that he could replace God as the ruler of the universe, by interjecting himself to man as the creator through informing man of geometric physics and plagiarizing away. As we saw with God's view of humankind, it needed to be reset with the flood in Genesis. Thus we can infer that God made some angels who were also not so good, since he is not controlling. Obviously, God knows the end from the beginning. He allowed Satan to witness creation for a purpose, having full knowledge that Satan would rebel against him. He also knew Satan would not know exactly what was happening behind the scenes of creation. Satan rebelled long before even the Torah itself was written, and he has been trying to play catch-up ever since. Just as we saw Adonai directly intervenes in people's lives as does his angel, we should also expect that Satan too intervenes in people's lives. It's possible that Satan subsequently gives the dominion he stole to other people, in which he lives vicariously through. It's also possible, as we saw with the Queen of the South and the Angel of God as King of Salem, that there are immortals among us, and that just as God the Son was born in Jesus, and will come back again reborn as a human, and just as also God the Father will also come to earth to dwell among humans as it is written, so too Satan has been born as well. Lilith seems to either endow her powers through women or through men. This makes sense with the rumors regarding people selling their souls or serving a god. In return they receive some sort of greater abilities. The thing is, we find this stuff to appear in popular culture all the time. It seems that you have to be aligned with this woman and Satan in order to rise in what we colloquially call stardom, or in any sort of power position. L. Ron Hubbard states that he received his magical powers from the same female deity who gave them to Adolf Hitler, and after all, Scientology is called one of the most powerful and richest religions in the world, and it is based on the concept of reincarnation, as are others. Even Rastafarism and Islam receive their basis from a female deity. Mormonism is also the same story as Islam, even referring to the very same named angel. Urantia was another religion identical in its formation to Scientology, a few people claiming to be in contact with aliens in the astral plane. Even the apostles attest to reincarnation in Acts, stating that reincarnation is real and offering Jesus as proof. This is a completely separate argument than that Jesus has authority over death. When Paul is arguing his case before the Roman governor, he claims that he is being accused because he is from a sect that believes in the resurrection of the dead, while his accusers are from a sect that does not believe in this doctrine. This is interpreted to mean the resurrection of Jesus. But Paul distinguishes himself as a student of a very famous sect, not simply as a follower of Jesus, and they believe in what is called in our modern language reincarnation. Even Yeshua himself stated that you must be born again from above to enter the kingdom of heaven. And more directly, he said that Elijah had come already as John the Baptist, and that he will come again on the last day. The truth is, Satan saw how the mind was created, and over thousands of years of practice, he has perpetuated the use of mind control to retain power over the chosen lineage of Yahweh. Satan taught ancient civilizations two main things: electricity and psychological programming. Take a look at this snake charmer. Notice that he is hypnotizing the snake by moving his leg back and forth. What is happening here is that the eyes are switching back and forth between the two hemispheres of the brain. This is the same thing that occurs when Sigmund Freud would place his subjects under hypnosis and swing a clock back and forth in front of their eyes. As the brain hemispheres switch back and forth, it must cause the third eye to dominate the brain and nullify all the other senses, except essentially the spirit. Satan taught early humans by demonstrating with the position of Venus next to the moon that a human's eyes will focus on the moon and ignore the star, and by doing so it will cause one hemisphere of the brain to dominate actions. You see, people have said, including professors with PhDs, that we people have been hypnotized, but no one can fully explain how. Myself, as an empiricist, I cannot ignore the prevalence of this belief within society, the same way I cannot ignore a possibility of reincarnation. It seems that by switching the brain to each hemisphere through using extremes of emotional stimulus, like extreme lust, followed by extreme fear, causes a psychological paralysis of free thought. Studies have been conducted that give great amounts of evidence to support that people behave differently in different emotional states. For example, people are more willing to purchase a car if they are in an emotional state of guilt. Whatever the case, the idea here is that by closing or squinting one eye, the viewer will focus on the eye that is open, just like they focus on the moon, and by doing so perpetually enlarge one hemisphere of the brain. Now, I know this sounds absolutely absurd, but unfortunately, I have to tell you this, it's the truth. Take a look at this scene from Fallout where we encounter the second in charge of the mutant army.
Well, I'm quite impressed. My spies told me you were resourceful, but they seem to have underestimated your talents. Guards, capture him.
I'm not saying everyone does it intentionally, but if you are not in the occult, you will actually end up focusing on one eye or coming up with drawings of one eye, even if you are the uninitiated, whenever you try to create something. This is because those in the occult have the ability to create the ideas in origin since they have been taught, thus they are the leaders, and we, by default, are followers by remaining ignorant. We mimic these actions at a subconscious level because we are constantly being programmed with it. Just the same way young kids and even adults only have the creative capacity to draw penises on everything. Now, let's revisit our encounter with the Master from Fallout.
Something catches your attention, a flash of movement from the ceiling, and then a sliver of bone pierces your eye. With it comes the thoughts of the dead and tortured.
And there it is, a piece of bone pierces your eye. Did you even notice it the first time?
So what shall it be? Do you join the Unity, or do you die here?
Join.
Die!
Join.
Die!
Notice that his eye is all the way over there, and thus you're actually looking more at this eye than the rest of its body. This is a blatant example of programming your mind. Now take a look at your dollar bill. You are going to notice that there is just one eye at the top of the pyramid. So now, notice that it isn't just any eye, it's specifically the left eye. Let's ask ourselves, why does this singer, from the group TLC, choose the name, Left Eye? And why is her hair only covering up just one of her eyes? The list of evidence goes on and on. Just open both of your eyes and take a look around. From Popeye, as in popping eye out, to Einstein bagels, this sort of mirror reflection imagery is ubiquitous in Earth's society. With this I will point out the secret of the Sphinx. At some point the Sphinx, and the pyramids, were restored, or at least someone came along and intentionally modified them. Notice they did not actually repair the partially destroyed face. After researching many more ancient sculptures, whether Egyptian statue or Sphinx, too many to be coincidental, have taken damage to one eye, facially disfigured, or have been beheaded. The theory arises that either these were initially disfigured by design, or someone intentionally disfigured them at a later point. The animal portion of the Sphinx, and the human portion, represent duality of the mind. On one hand is the animalistic mammalian id, and on the other is the thoughtful human creator spirit, but the two are separated. It is in fact that this duality, with its amplification through the eye laceration, that is the secret of the Sphinx. As it turns out, Satan has another name, Odin, who has just one eye. So now, you are beginning to understand the truth. Take it from Jesus. Even he said, if one eye makes you sin, gouge it out. Better to be one-eyed and enter the kingdom of heaven than have both eyes and die. He said earlier, specifically, if your right eye makes you sin, gouge it out. This hypnosis is occurring all the time. In the extreme, this hypnosis is blatantly inserted into the movies, and we may simply black out when it occurs. Likened to a person who is hypnotized, and then after they snap out of it, states that they had no idea it occurred. Either that, or it is restricted to a subtle, semi-hypnotic state of consciousness at all times. Imagine you take a trip to the store. Every image you see, whether real-life depiction like the cover of a magazine, to the logo on a product, there is some type of hypnotizing depiction. Or, as you watch TV, the camera angles switch back and forth, changing your perspective in a particular way since the camera is one-eyed, and the emotions invoked by the depictions switch between making you feel happiness or inadequacy, lustful or revolted, fearful or guilty, jealous or envious, moving your neural connections between the left and right hemispheres of your brain, and playing you like a puppet. Since this is a physiological hypnosis, theoretically, it should be reversible. To put it plainly, if the hypnosis occurs because it is a backdoor to our perception, and it only occurs by looking at it, then we should be able to snap ourselves out of it by reversing the process and simply not looking. The question is not whether the hypnosis occurs, the question is it limited to only a simple magic trick wherein the hypnosis distracts us in such a way that we turn a blind eye, and our actions are dominated by an enlarged impulsive lobe, or does it actually give them real supernatural powers beyond a physiological explanation? Either way, there are a bunch of people literally out of their minds with one eye squinting and the other eye wide open.
Oh, you bet against anybody, anything. Strikes, balls, hits, runs, errors, anything, take your pick. I once bet $100,000 on 3 pitched balls.
How'd you make out?
Didn't. But the next week, I ruined the guy with a different deal. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. I lost with you today, but some of the time, I'll clean up double.
How are you gonna do that?
When you're not batting so good.
Well, how will you know when to bet on that?
The magic eye, it sees all.
Gus, well, why don't you show him how it works? Go on.
Huh? Yeah, sure, why not? I'll bet that I can tell, within a buck either way, how much money you've got in your pocket right now.
I'll take that chance.
For $1,000?
Better make it 100. You know the judge.
100 it is. You got $10.